Hello, thank you for tuning in to this fast chat on static systems, the problems we face and how to break free of them. My name is Daphne Kraus. Today I'm speaking with the one and only Hector Monsegur, a good friend and strategic advisor. Hector is the director of research at Alacrinet. He is a brilliant cybersecurity researcher and again, an expert advisor. Hector has a long history in the cyber world with a vast knowledge on the subject, as well as world renowned expertise. Thrilled to have you here, Hector.
I'm thrilled to be here as well. This is awesome. Looking forward to this chat.
Me too. So let's get started with static systems. What risk do they pose to the defense of business applications?
Well, it's a great question, right? So if we're talking about like static analysis, and that's really the topic, right? When we're looking at static analysis systems, or systems that rely on, let's say, a static, rule sets or strings, signatures, um, anything that'll trigger an event, right? That's not dynamic. That's a static analysis tool. It could be as simple as using grep on a Unix system to comb through source code looking for specific functions or user functions. And it can be much more complex, like using a static analysis tool by a vendor that has probably millions of lines of different sorts of, I would say, programming lines, code snippets that may seem bad, and if triggered, if found in your source code, would again trigger an alert. Um, it is a tool, definitely. It's very similar to a dynamic analysis tool, or even more recently, an interactive dynamic analysis tool. The truth is that there's pros and cons to each. The big and major limitation is that since the pathway for static analysis of a source code, a repository, anything, is essentially looking for the knowns. And if the knowns are found, then we trigger an event. It will not know about the unknowns. And that's the biggest con, right? It's the biggest negative for any static analysis system.
So you were able to see a demo of Rampart in action and even check out the Rampart cyber range firsthand. How is this application solution different from a more traditional static system like you just talked about?
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun for a security enthusiast and practitioner. It was fun to see because I love when teams and researchers come up with new ideas, or they're taking ideas that have been used before and using them in a way that makes sense. When I got to see how Rampart AI did in his cyber range, I was very impressed because I mean it works very much like an interactive agent. It's able to identify anomalies on the fly, right? It doesn't rely on a database of strings or signatures to help trigger an event. And that's really the differentiator. Where it's a comparison of oranges and apples, right? You have one system that's static, and you have another system that's interactive. And I would say that's the big positive for Rampart over other systems that are static for sure.
What do you think is like the biggest vulnerability businesses are facing now?
But I think the biggest problem, and this goes beyond a single vulnerability, Daphne, right? Is a lot of companies they don't have a solid like DevOps environment in place or policies in place. A lot of organizations that I've seen that I've done pen testing for don't even have like a DevOps security engineer or a DevOps security manager. I've seen those in the big boy companies, right? Those billion-dollar companies that we all know and love. I've seen DevOps managers there, but once you start going down the totem pole, you start to see that most companies are not in that position. Now, because they're not in that position, right, there is little in terms of testing being done prior to deployment, right? So you may have designer QA, and you may have maybe functionality QA in staging. You may even have some security testing, right, by means of static analysis tool, maybe dynamic, and that's a big maybe, okay? But most of these companies do not have security built into their DevOps and continuous development cycle. That's problematic. That's the biggest problem they're dealing with. So now, when you take something like a Rampart, which acts as an interactive agent, you could deploy it literally in during the continuous development cycle and pick up issues as you go. or even in the later stage, like production deployment. Either way, you know the uh, the agent will operate on any any step, right? Really. So that's my opinion on how I feel web app, or I would say providers, companies that are developing web apps, that kind of where they at, what they're dealing with, what their biggest issue is. Um, if you would have asked me the same question 10 years ago, right, Daphne, it wouldn't be more of DevOps because back then DevOps was even worse than it is now. I would say, well, user input validation, SQL injection, stuff like that, the common vectors. Those were so, I would say they were exploited at such a large volume, Daphne, that it would have superseded my DevOps answer right now. All right, it's a big difference.
So the future of attacks and vulnerabilities, what do you see happening there?
Yeah, well, I mean, we need to continue with what we're doing now. This I love looking at the industry in general on a timeline, right? So 10 years ago, you would ask me the same question. I would tell you, yeah, SQL injections and user input is a problem. You ask me today in 2022, well, I think DevOps or the lack of DevOps is a problem. Okay. So for the future, I think that we will have more DevOps. We will have more people in place. We will need to have more unit testing and QAing, and we need more people involved in identifying and training not only their products, their developers. If they have Rampart, great. Train Rampart to deal with their applications. Um, but we really don't know how bad it's going to be 10 years from now because I know that some companies want to completely remove passwords. Okay. So maybe if you ask me the same question 10 years from now, maybe my problem will be more authentication. We have a major authentication problem. I'm not sure. It's hard to answer.
Yeah. No, that's really good insight into that. So actually, Hector, I have a bonus question for you.
Oh yeah, let's go.
So you were able to hack into places and perform pen testing activities that take an unimaginable level of skill, critical thinking, and let's face it, talent. What got you interested in cybersecurity and more importantly, vulnerable systems to begin with?
That's a fun question, Daphne, because you know we all go through the phase in our lives when we don't know what it is that we want to do. And so I'm not sure if you did this. Here's what I did. I sat in my house one day in my apartment. I said, okay, so am I good at drawing? No, I'm not. Can I sing? No, I can't sing. Do I play any instruments? Well, I know how to play the bongo and the conga, but that's I don't know any famous like musicians from that. Okay, well, the computer stuff. Okay, am I good with computers? Well, not really. Do I know how to program? Yeah. Can I break things? Yes. I'm very good at breaking things. Analyzing, and of course the critical thinking part. Absolutely, you're right. You touched the keyword there. It just so happens that I'm not very artistic, Daphne, but for whatever reason, I'm good at looking at things subjectively and critically, and it's allowed me to look at systems and software in a different way. When someone shows me a software, like for example, when your team showed me Rampart, you remember I was asking a bunch of questions. Well, how can we break Rampart? How can we do this in Rampart? Can we do X, Y, and Z? Right? That's just the way I work. So that's what got me into hacking and all that good stuff.
Hector, thank you for chatting with me about static systems and the solution. It's been such a pleasure. For more information about Rampart AI's resilient application solution, head to rampartai.com. You can find more fast chat and thought leadership content there or on our Twitter and LinkedIn. To our listeners, thank you for sticking around. Until next time, stay secure.